Lord Tremendous here. Got another book review here for you. This one is the fourth short story in the, I don't know, collection of short stories in the Persolus Race. This is 4 of 16, written by Andrew McGregor. And full disclosure, I've talked with Andrew McGregor before. I've read some of his books on this page earlier. I've reviewed some. We even talked about doing a cooperative little story similar to this one a couple years back. It just never worked out. So that didn't affect my review or anything like that, but just in case controversy wants to rear its ugly head, yes, we know each other. Yes, he's one of the reasons that the authors of this book sent it to me in order to get the reviews, but it didn't affect my review at all. I looked at it the same way I looked at the rest of them, but yes, I do like this guy's writing, and so yeah, full disclosure, I've spoken with Andrew. We speak semi-frequently, and he's actually a phenomenal author. I really like his work, so I was excited to get into this one, and small spoiler, I wasn't disappointed. It is still science fiction. It was still published August 26th of 2021, and this particular version, or this short story anyway, was 79 pages long. This is actually, I'm looking forward to doing this review, so let's get to it. So here's the spoiler-free side of the review. I am going to probably spoil a few small things here and there. I have to in order to give a book review that's, worth listening to. But yeah, for the most part, I shouldn't do anything that's going to ruin the story for you. But at the same time, I might have to just touch on some small things, and for that I apologize. So the main characters are Julian, who is the sole survivor of a colony ship that's been heading to a specific planet for about 40 years, just under. When he gets there, he becomes a king, and the idea is he's trying to, dig up and repair a terraforming machine known as an Eden in order to save this planet and the people that have landed there, because other colonists have landed there, but they've regressed to like a medieval times, dark age type of society, and it's not going well. The planet's going through some sort of ice age, but the Eden machine can fix that if they can dig it up and repair it and activate it. So that's Julian's mission. This story, fast forwards a decade to 50 years and then switches characters a little bit throughout, so it gets a little confusing. But the next main character is a guy named Thanen, and he's basically the son of one of Julian's lords later on, after Julian has started basically a civil war. Thanen's part of the story I didn't fully understand because it doesn't really matter. He's conflicted because Julian has decided to use slavery in order to get the work done that he needs to get done. Thanen works for Julian, and he's a slave controller, guard, whatever you want to call him. But he's conflicted about it, and when a 12-year-old girl escapes from him, he joins the rebels in order to avoid punishment from his father, and because he feels bad about slavery. It's the weakest part of the story, but I'll get more into that in a spoiler-rich review. Shannon is Julian's son, and a lunatic and a lord, and we'll get into that a little bit later. His part of the story is kind of wild. Lisa is the AI of the colony ship that Julian arrived in. She's the one that it's really neat because the AI is probably, again, my favorite character just because of how just sarcastic and kind of murderous a little serial killer Lisa is. It's kind of neat. Sally is a offshoot of Lisa's personality program, her AI program, that gets sent down to the planet with Julian inside of basically a suit of armor, a futuristic suit of armor. It looks kind of like a mithril, if you're Lord of the Rings savvy, or basically a white onesie type of thing. But it's, of course, super futuristic, it's tougher than plate mail. Very, very cool. Well, a part of Lisa's personality in AI form is what basically runs this, Iron Man suit, and it's called Sally instead of Lisa. It's great. I love the personality of Sally. Made me internally laugh quite a few times. Birch is a guard that basically finishes Julian's mission, and and then Millie is the one that is able to activate everything and make things go the way they were supposed to go. Millie is Birch's granddaughter. This is a series of really good, shorter stories and a short story. Honestly, it feels like a bunch of teaser stories and what I honestly hope is a future series of full-blown novels. From beginning to end, each one of them, with the exception of maybe Thanen's storyline, maybe that needs to be fleshed out a little bit. I really didn't see how it fit. We'll get into that in the spoiler side. But yeah, it's just as you start really getting into it and you start to settle in and start chewing through pages, it shifts. It jumps to another character and another part of the timeline, and it's a little like disappointing. It's like you spend all the time baking the cake and decorating it and putting the candles on it, and you blow out the candles, you cut the piece of cake out, and you're about to stick your fork in, and somebody comes along, throws it away, and now you got to make a pie. And then you make the pie, and the pie is really good. And then again, you're about to eat it, and somebody comes and throws it away, and now you got to make brownies. It's like each one is awesome and delicious in its own right, but at the same time, you never really get to sink your teeth into it. And it's like so I'm really hoping that Andrew comes back and makes each one of these its own separate novel because I want to know what happens. I want to know the fuller story because each one, with the exception of Thanen's, is really interesting, really fun, and I enjoyed it. I want to know more. The cover is the same. We've been over that in the previous ones. I'm not going to beat that horse any more than I need to. Editing on this was really good. I didn't run into any editing issues whatsoever. I think maybe one word, like the tense was wrong, but that was it. I mean, it's 79 pages, and I found one editing error. That's phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you. I think he either used an editor or I might know the editor that he used. I'm not 100% on that. Story flow was cool. It was good, but like I said, it right as you were getting ready to sink your teeth into the meat of the story, it would shift, and it was like you thought you were going to bite into something and instead your teeth clacked together and it's like but it didn't ruin anything for me. It just left me wanting more. It felt like a sneak peek into the first few chapters of an otherwise really, really cool and rich story. The pros in this book, there's a lot of them. Phenomenal world building. Really like the way he set everything up. The colony ship felt real. The planet felt real. The people felt real. The characters all were individuals. They all had their own personalities, and it felt real. They didn't feel like cardboard cutouts or everyone had the same personality or speech patterns or dialogue or anything. Everything was really, really good, and it made you like invest in the story. You wanted to, you were kind of rooting for him or rooting against him. It was like, oh, this is great. Oh, but slaves are bad. Oh, but they're gonna do this. Oh, but that's bad. Yeah, it was it was a fun story. I really enjoyed it, and just the concept, the urgency, like the feel that if we don't fix this planet soon, no one here is gonna live. And the comic relief being the AI was great. I really, really liked the way all the different pieces that he put into this to form like a really good teaser. It's the first of these stories in this particular amalgamation of short stories that feels like it's set in the future. The previous three felt like it was 2010. There was a lot of old tech. You know, you're 3, 4, 5, 600 years in the future, and yet we're still using elevators and stuff like that. It felt like I was in 2010, not 2500. This one, we're in the early to mid 2600s when it starts, and it feels like it. You feel like you're in a futuristic world. Even the world in the Dark Ages and stuff like that. The way they have some stuff, the way things work. Sally, the suit, Lisa, the ship. A lot of the technology, the way Julian makes stuff, the way even Birch and them, the way they function, the way they talk, the things that are around them. It felt like it was in the proper time period, and I'm really, really happy to see that. Like I said, a lot of super cool tech. Sally is basically Iron Man suit that should have been. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got nothing against the Iron Man suit, but the Sally suit is just outstanding because her programming makes it so that she has to help humans, but again, that whole Terminator-esque Skynet personality of can't I just kill all of you? Like, wouldn't that be cool? It's just it's a lot like Claptrap from Borderlands and stuff like that. It's just the way they kind of want to off you is outstanding. I really like, or HK from the Star Wars series. I enjoyed that a lot. Like I said, the story, the more I read, the more I wanted to know. I wanted it to be, a 300 each one of the little short stories inside this short story. I wanted it to be a full-blown novel, and I am a little disappointed that it wasn't, but at the same time, I'm thrilled that he was able to craft a story, especially in such a short amount of time, and so many of them that made me feel invested, made me want to know more. The ending is well thought out, connects with the rest of the story, and is an excellent cliffhanger, with the exception of a little bit, and I'll get into that later on. But the bottom line is it hooked me from the beginning and kept me interested the whole time. This short story was 79 pages long, and I chewed through it, not even realizing it was over until it was over. And I was disappointed. I was like, oh, I want to keep going. And that's a really good sign it's a good book, or a good story anyway. Cons for me personally, there were too many time jumps. There were too many time jumps. It was kind of abrupt, and like I said, just as you were about to sink your teeth into a storyline, your teeth would clack together because it would get ripped away from you, and now you were 10 to 50 years in the future trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and sometimes it was a new character that was introduced. The author was able to create that world and make you care and be interested in the new character and stuff like that right away, but at the same time it was like, well, I wasn't done with this yet. I want to go back and find out what happens with Julian, with Shannon, with Sally, with Lisa, with Birch. It was I'm not done with this part yet. Just like I said, that was kind of a discouraging part of the story for me. There were too many characters. Especially in my opinion, if you're gonna jump like this, stick with 2 or 3 characters max. We should have gotten more of Julian. We should have gotten more of Shannon. We should have gotten more of Sally the Suit. Sally the Suit bounces around from place to place, and it's kind of interesting because she shuts down. 100 years pass. She wakes up and she's like, "Hey, where's Shannon?" Shannon's not here. Oh, that's too bad for you. It's like, uh-oh. But I'd love, it's kind of like Excalibur's storyline. How did you get in the stone? How did you get back into the stone? What did you do in between? It's interesting. And the legends that form as the time goes on, I'd really like to have read that and see, how those legends formed while time passed. It just feels like there's so much there that I haven't read, and I really, really want to. And like I said, when it was over, I didn't even realize I was at the end of the book, and I really wanted more. So that's a pro and a con. It's a pro because obviously, if he did write a full-blown novel on any of these particular short stories, I would buy it in an instant. But at the same time, now I gotta wait, and it just feels like if for this book as particular, that could have been his contribution, Julian's story. It doesn't have to be a long one. It could have done the jumps, but in 79, 80 pages, if he had just stuck with Julian's story, we would have gotten that full thing from when he, on the colony ship all the way up until, eventually it transitioned to another character. That would have been really cool, and then future short stories could have been 80 pages of the individuals. Again, just my opinion. I know I'm nitpicking. I know I'm being a brat, but damn it, I want more. I want Julian's story bad. So overall, when it comes to rating, I gave it not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 stars out of 5. And the reason that it's not a 5 out of 5 is because I didn't like Thanen's storyline at all. I'll get into that in just a second when I get into the spoiler parts, but Thanen's part feels disconnected from the rest of the story. It feels like 10, 15 pages of wasted time because his part of it really doesn't connect. Nothing happens that affects the overall storyline. And while that could work, Thanen's storyline could work great with a book that is a dedicated novel to this story, not just a short story. It ate at me a little bit. It was like, why did I read all this? Why did I have to learn about Thanen and his storyline? While it was interesting and I wanted to see that spinoff, it didn't make any sense for the short story. It didn't need to be in there. It didn't add to the overall story. There was no benefit from learning from that. And when it comes to writing short stories, you don't have time to waste on needless side characters. Would this story be a 5 star out of 5 if Thanen's was out of there? Possibly, but probably not, because I also didn't like the way it bounced so much. Like I said, it was really disheartening, discouraging when you would just start to sink your teeth into the characters, into the short story, and really enjoy that plot point, and then you would jump to another. There's like 5 or 6 different cuts in this story. That's already a truncated story, and so I'm getting 5 or 6 truncated stories in an already truncated story. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. I shouldn't say you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Stick with it. Stick with 1 or 2 characters, and then you do your jumps or whatever. That's totally fine, especially for a short story, but it was too much information, too many characters, too much spinning around. And while they were all really, really good, most of it comes together in the end. I would have liked to see a more concise story circling around, 2 or 3 main characters, like Julian with Sally in his ear, Julian's son Shane in later on, especially with Sally in his ear. That would have been great. Later on, Birch and his granddaughter Millie, as they finish Julian's, mission. That, in my opinion, would have been a much better way to spend the time telling the story. Again, it's not my story. I understand that, but it was just, that was what I wanted from the story. That's what I was looking for. That was the best part of the story, and I really wish it would have been more concise like that. Short stories are tricky, though, and I still really, really like this one, even with all the jumps and the whining that I'm doing, and I'm aware it's whining. This is a solid 4 out of 5, and yeah, a little bit more concise and remove some dead weight, and this would easily be a 5 out of 5. All right, so this is the spoiler-filled review section. So if you don't want spoilers, I totally respect that. Go ahead and go down into the description below, click the link, buy this book, and then stop this video completely. Read the book, come back, and we'll talk about it. We'll have a conversation in the comment section. I'd love nothing more. So if you're still here, we're going to start. So let's get to it. So it starts off as this guy, Julian. He's the lone survivor in a colony ship. There used to be like 10, 15 other people in there. But basically, Julian's parents were on some ship with a distress signal. The people stopped and picked them up, even though they knew that by doing so, they were killing themselves because the ship was not equipped to carry 3 more people. 40 years down the road, everybody else has been evacuated from the ship, dead. They're kind of stuck in the orbit with this ship, I guess, because, or maybe they're in some sort of coffin or escape pod. I'm not really sure. At one point, Julian looks out the window and sees a bunch of lights, and it's all the dead, all the dead crewmates that had to abandon the ship so that Julian could make it to this planet and help them or whatever, because they were going to this planet to meet up with some other colonists that were there to drop off Julian and his family. And there was a terraforming machine there called an Eden, but they never got it activated. So the world is basically in an ice age. But if they could get this Eden machine unburied and operating again, then they could make the planet habitable and glorious and a utopia. The beginning story in this short story feels a lot like The Martian, where he's kind of piecing things together and being resourceful with his little AI buddy, Lisa, kind of guiding him around and helping him with the tech stuff. And how he's surviving and what he's doing and the stuff that he's eating. Like there's these regen vines or whatever that produce oxygen or carbon dioxide or whatever other gas is required in the environment in order for him to live. But they can also be eaten if required, although they taste like garbage apparently. But he's got to ration his water, ration his food. He's growing food. He's got to do constant repairs. It's really cool, and it gave that Martian vibe. It was like that survivalist thing. It was very cool. It was a very smart way to catch the reader's attention initially. Eventually, Julian makes it to the planet and jumps in an escape pod with a whole bunch of tech and slam dunks onto the planet, no problem. And it's just a big snowball. I mean, it's in the middle of an ice age. It's not doing great. When he gets there, the humans that had landed there prior to him with the Eden machine and everything like that, everything kind of broke down, and now they've regressed into like a Dark Age society. We're talking spears, sticks, and very basic levels of technology. And he shows up with this spaceship, and his ship, Lisa, they call it like the Spear Star or something like that, and it's way up in the air, or it's in orbit, but it's got these huge like sails, these 4,000 kilometer long sails that are sticking out. So it looks like this big shining beacon in the sky, and they saw him drop from that or whatever, and they go, "Oh, did you drop from that?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did. That's Lisa. I'm Julian, and I'm here to try to help you out." Or he asked them for help. And they're like, "Well, you're supposed to be helping us. Your AI has been contacting us on our radios before they all went dead, saying that you were coming and that you were going to help us dig up and fix the Eden machine so that we can terraform the planet." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I can do that, sure." And Lisa's left him notes. He's got like this little box that has a bunch of different tips and tricks on how to do some stuff. But then also he's got this armor, this suit that basically looks like a big, full onesie type of thing for of mithril or whatever is what I got from a big white cloth suit, but it's as tough as metal and all that other stuff. And it's basically Lisa's personality in there, but it's not Lisa, and it has to be called Sally. And it's just a snarky murder machine, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, after that, you get the first flash forward, and Julian has started a civil war because he's using slaves to do all the manual labor. Sally kind of encouraged him not to do it. It doesn't really explain the conversation that was happening, but King Julian has decided to do slavery in order to make things work out. I guess there was some like plains people and there was some mountain people, and the mountain people are the ones that Julian's working with because that's where the Eden thing is trapped. Well, the mountain people and the plains people didn't get along. They're conquering the plains people because they have, orbitable surveillance equipment, so they always know where the plains people are. And so when they try to attack, they capture them and force them to do the work. Well, slavery never really goes over well with humanity, and they're resisting. So they're fighting, and you get this first flash forward to this guy named Thanon. And Thanon is the son of a lord that's on Julian's side. And Thanon is basically a slave guard. He's in charge of a bunch of slaves. Well, this girl, Callie, who's like 12 years old, is running away, trying to get away from Thanon and his hounds, and she ends up jumping into a river and getting away. And Thanon's whole thing is, I have to now join the Plains people and fight against everybody here in order to avoid my father's wrath because I lost a slave. That's going to be really bad. I'm in a lot of trouble. He didn't like the fact that they had slaves and stuff like that, but his reason for running away and joining the resistance or whatever was because he didn't want to get in trouble. Bottom line. Yeah, he tries to justify it by saying slavery's bad, but no, he runs away because he doesn't want to get in trouble. I mean, his dad does kill his dog. That's kind of sad. But later on, it's like 6 years later, Thanon is now a sergeant in the rebel army or whatever, and they're at some inn eating, and one of the people serving him is a slave girl, Callie, and she's 18 at this point. Thanon gets mad because he blames her for being in the situation that he is. Needless to say, the Rebel Alliance is not what Star Wars made it seem like it was going to be, and he's pissed off because they're not really here to do anything other than just be the next King Julian. Basically everyone's a scumbag, and I like that because that's a little dose of reality for you. I like that a lot. He confronts Callie, scares the hell out of her, and then feels really bad that he scared her and leaves her alone. And then you flash forward again, and like nothing happens. Julian wins the war, and then he kind of dies off screen before Eden can be activated. So again, I don't understand what Thanon and Callie's part of this story was for. It was like 15, 20 pages of wasted effort in my opinion, because that's it. It doesn't really help or affect anything. Or I missed it. It's possible I just missed it, but I don't know. I don't understand why that storyline was in this already truncated storyline. So then you go to the third flash forward, and Shannon, Julian's son, is a lunatic. He's a murderer slash vassal lord. He's got a couple of jobs. And there's a slave revolution going on. The war is won, but the slaves have revolted and have taken down. There's this big group of like 1,000 slaves with some cavalry, but mostly swords or pitchforks and sharp sticks and that can-do attitude. So they've taken down 2 keeps, and it's just this practice, which I thought was a really clever way of explaining it. They didn't need to take down these keeps, but they needed to get experience. They needed to get battle hardened a little bit. That was really clever. A lot of authors miss that, and I like that a lot. The fact that the author took the time just for a couple of sentences to say, no, these slaves are a little bit more battle hardened than regular ones. They're actually a threat because Shannon is, I mean, the stereotypical lunatic murderer vassal lord. He's full of himself. He's obviously 5-6 degrees off center, but of course he's got his father's technology, so he's also very, very hard to kill. He's got full plate armor, which a pitchfork versus full plate armor isn't going to work out too great. Sharp sticks, not so much either. He's got a long sword he's really good with. He's got a bunch. He's just, he's got all the advantages, and he knows it. And he's got like 4 guys with him that are pretty tough and battle hardened in their own. He's got some he's got a small army, like 50-60 guys, but they've got the technology and the weaponry and the fortified position in order to hold it. So they go out and they meet the slaves and they hear their demands and they don't like them. And so Shannon just starts killing all of them. His buddies all help him. And basically they kill the slave delegation that came to talk to him. Don't get me wrong. The delegation was a bunch of scumbags. And they were like, give us 10% of your food, 10% of your tools, 10% of your weapons, and we'll leave you alone. We might even consider becoming, allies with you. And it's like, that's not how that's going to work. So yeah, Shannon and his people kill off the delegation. The 1,000 or so slaves that just saw that go chasing after him. But, they're on horses. They get away no problem, get back into his castle. But it's a small castle. Like I said, it's got like 100 people in their tops. So they kind of border up in there. They close the doors, get everybody ready to be, sieged or whatever. But Shannon's downplaying it all. He goes, worst comes to worst, I'll just kill them all myself. I'm not super worried about it. They've got some archers, they got some cavalry, but they've got no siege equipment. They've got no ability to get through our doors. So the hell with them. We'll kill them and eventually they'll go away. They're just slaves. What are we worried about? Well, that night the slave revolt happens. They all come charging in, and they get through the keep and into the keep relatively easily. It doesn't really explain that a whole lot. The action is good. The action is solid. It's suitably gory and suitably R-rated. But yeah, men, women, children, nobody is safe on either side. The slaves come in and start killing everybody, and at one point you see one of Shannon's buddies, Lark, is protecting, like he's the final bastion where the women and children are hiding out. And Shannon is out there slicing people down, killing everybody. He's up on a wall, murdering everybody he can get a hold of. He's actually chasing a child down that had a dagger that apparently tried to stab him or whatever. I mean, it's a war, so everybody is trying to stab everybody, I guess. But he's chasing after this child, and a bunch of archers show up, and they shoot at him. The arrows can't hurt him, but they did daze him. One hits him in the head, dazes him real good. He falls off the wall and breaks his neck. So a little anticlimactic. I thought that was a bit of a shortcut. Honestly, this author is better than that. It would have been cooler if they had, like, somebody charge him with a horse to knock him off there, or maybe the kid just knows he's dead anyway and grabs him and takes him off the wall, something along those lines. I don't know. But just him getting hit in the head by an arrow and getting dazed and falling off the wall, to each their own. It was just, Shannon was an unstoppable killing machine that was literally taking down an army of slaves by himself, and then an arrow in the head dazes him, he loses balance, falls off the wall, breaks his neck. Just felt a little anticlimactic. It feels like a missed opportunity. Of course, the slaves, now have battle lust going on. They know exactly where the last bastion is, and they start pounding on the door. Let us in or we'll burn you out. Lark opens the door, bad call, and basically what starts happening is everybody starts killing everybody. Lark is a coward. He runs away, and he runs over to Shannon's bedroom type of area, unlocks the door with the key that he ripped off his wife's necklace just before he left her to die, and gets into the room just as the slaves are right behind him. They start pounding on the door, and he sees this basically full suit mithril onesie, which is Sally, the Sally the suit. Well, she gets powered up by being put near fire or in fire. The heat, the thermal, is what charges her batteries. Well, she's right next to a roaring fire because, again, it's an ice planet, it's cold, so they have her right next to a fire, and that seems to be fixing or charging her or whatever. And so when he gets into the room, Sally activates and is like, my battery cells are like 21%. What's going on? Where's Shannon? And he's like, Lark is like, Shannon's dead. Oh, my grandson is dead. that's too bad. And just as she's learning that, they get the door down, the slaves get the doors down, and she's like, so who killed Shannon? Was it you? And he goes, no, it wasn't me, it was them, the people that just came through the door. And she's like, oh, okay, use me as a suit, and we're going to go ahead and take care of all these people. So Lark dives into the suit because he doesn't want to die, not really understanding what's going on, and Sally turns into Wolverine and starts killing everyone with the power claws of doom, and literally kills everyone in the slave revolt. Lark is inside. Lark gets a little damage from that, from what I understand. But then you flash forward to the fourth part, and now it's a bunch of scribes, and they're in a museum, and Lark the Brave is a legend because he single-handedly finished off the slave revolt, by killing every single slave involved using the Sally suit. They call it a little something else, but I like Sally suit, so that's what I'm going with. The scribes are showing a new manager, a new lead, scribe around the curator, I guess you want to call him, around this museum that's in disrepair. Like, everything's fallen apart. Julian has failed, Shannon has failed, Sally is powered down, so nobody has pulled the Eden machine out of the ground. So the planet is just going deeper and deeper into this ice age. All their crops are gone, all their animals are dying off, the planet is freezing over, and there's, I don't know, a few thousand people left on the planet. It's not going well. And they've got this museum, the Memorial, King Julian Memorial Museum, where all the different stuff is. And this new curator, who doesn't have a clue what he's looking at or what he's doing, is walking through with this scribe, and he's like, bring that, throw that away, that's garbage. He's kicking everything across the museum, and he gets to the Sally suit that's sitting there on display. And he's like, what is that? And so they move all the snow and ice off of it, and he's like, this is an ancient suit that came from with King Julian. And the curator's like, he's cold because everything's cold, it's miserable, and he's like whatever, that thing's garbage, throw it on the fire. At a minimum, maybe it can keep us warm for a little bit. And the scribe is like, I really don't want to do that. And he's like, do it or your rations will be halved, for the next week. And so he's like, well, I don't want to starve either. So they pick up the suit, they throw it in the fire, and of course, fire charges Sally. So Sally gets up, goes, hey, what's going on? Why is it so cold? Did Julian fail? Oh, that's right. Julian and Shannon are dead. So who's in charge now? What's going on? Why am I in the fire? And the curator's like, my bad. She goes, you threw me in the fire to charge my batteries, or you threw me in the fire because you were trying to, use me to keep warm? And he's like, yeah, to charge your batteries, whatever that word was you just said. And Sally's like, yeah, not buying it. And she starts killing everyone. Murdering everyone. So this guard that's there, Birch, is trying to escape with this guy Paul. They end up getting down into like this escape area, but there's like a meter thick wall of ice that have formed because, again, the museum's in really bad disrepair. So they can't get away. Sally kills everyone and then gets to where Birch and Paul are at. She slices Birch pretty good but doesn't kill him, just hurts him real bad. And then she kills Paul, but just before he dies, he explains enough to her that she goes, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. I may have been a little hasty. I probably shouldn't have killed you all. We just need to finish digging up the Eden thing and turning it on. Oh, I've killed you, Paul. Darn it. Looks over at Birch. I haven't killed you yet. So the Sally thing is running out of power because it just got a trickle charge. Wraps itself up on Birch and says, get me back to the Eden thing before you freeze to death, and we'll make sure you survive. So Birch goes trudging towards the Eden thing at Sally's command, and a little bit of shock because he's cheated death by the skin of his teeth. Now we get our fifth flash forward. Birch is now Lord Birch, and he has completed what Julian started. They have dug up the Eden thing, they have completed all the repairs, and they have built a ship that needs to get back up to Lisa that's hanging out in the in orbit because everything's fallen apart. But they need to get back up to the ship because Sally didn't think it was going to take this long, and she still had communications with Lisa on the planet. But since 250 years have passed, Lisa is falling apart. They no longer have communications. So they need to get back up to the ship to get the codes in order to start the Eden thing to terraform the planet so that everybody could live. There's only a few hundred people left on the planet now because they're on life support. There's not much left. The planet is like sub-zero temperatures all the time. The ship Lisa was trying to reflect sunlight onto their little part of the planet for as long as it could in order to try to keep the temperature up a little bit, but those sails have failed. They're literally falling to the planet now. They kind of use them as religious garb or whatever. It's kind of cool, actually. But yeah, it's really cold. Things are going really bad. All their crops are gone. All their animals are gone. It's not a good look. So they have to build a spaceship to go up there. But of course, they don't have propulsion or anything like that. They use basically the Quake rocket jump to get up there. They built this spaceship with this big, reinforced plate on the bottom of it, and they set off nuclear bombs to bounce this ship up into orbit so that Sally can use pressurized air to eventually dock with Lisa. The great part about it is Birch's granddaughter, Millie, is the one that they've decided to be the pilot for that. And she's gotten some remedial training and stuff like that. But for the most part, Sally's doing all the hard stuff. Millie's really just kind of there to do the human interaction stuff that Lisa was designed for. So that's what happens. After everyone gets away, Sally starts blowing up nuclear bombs, small nuclear bombs, but nuclear bombs to bounce Millie in this spaceship into orbit. I thought that was awesome. The idea of Quake rocket jumping a spaceship into orbit was hilarious. And of course, they use the materials from things that have fallen off of Lisa and from the Eden project that could be spared in order to survive the nuclear blast and stuff like that. Also, the author goes into detail about during the time that the generations it took to build this, everybody that was exposed to the nuclear radiation died. Like Millie's mom died. A lot of her friends are dead. There's only a few hundred people left. So what radiation hasn't killed, the cold is going to finish off. And so I do like that because it really gives that sense of urgency to the storyline, because again, this was something that was only supposed to take a couple of years at most, and now it's been 250. They're way behind the power curve. So they get up into the space station, and Millie goes after, kind of going through everything. Sally is sarcastic and dismissive and kind of rude. Well, not kind of, very rude. But eventually they get up there, and you find out that this was a one-way mission. There was no way to get back down. Millie was going to go up there, get the codes, activate the Eden thing, and then run out of air and die. That was the plan. Lisa and Millie were using the last of their power to do the same thing, and since they were up there in orbit now, the next time they see the planet is when they crash into it, who knows when. So, yeah, this was a one-way, kind of a heroic, kind of a la Armageddon type of thing, but instead of blowing up an asteroid, she's transmitting a code to the Eden thing so that the safety locks disengage and it starts terraforming the planet. So she gets up there, she talks with Lisa, Sally and Lisa are reunited, Sally updates Lisa with everything that's going on, and it is determined that, I like Millie. She's been nothing but nice to me, and I've been pretty awful to her. And Lisa's like, oh yeah, I had a pet too named Julian, and that was a really cool little scene there. But they transmit the code, and it's great because the Eden thing kicks on, and Millie was expecting exactly what everybody else would be expecting: lights, steam, some sort of greenery, like immediate, Hollywood level effects from the Eden thing. And the author is smart, though. He goes, you don't see anything. It's going to take a long time for this thing to actually work, but your people are safe. They'll survive now. They'll notice the changes, but you're not going to see anything from up here, not for decades. So you can just go ahead and relax, but you can die knowing that you succeeded and that your friends and family are going to survive. The planet will become more habitable as time passes. You've done it. Congratulations. And she's like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping to see something. So she's got like 6 minutes left. And in my opinion, this is one of the very few weaknesses to this story. The author, in my opinion, should have committed. It's his story. He can do with it whatever you want. But Millie's thing was supposed to be a sacrifice. There was not supposed to be a way down. But I don't know, it almost felt tacked on a little bit. But Millie's up there, and she's accepted that she's going to die. She knew going up there was a one-way trip. She's successful. Everything's good. She's going to die a hero. She even says, I want to be remembered. I want to be immortal to my people because I'm the one that punched in the code. I may only be 16, but I was a hero. I saved my people. That's what's important. And so Sally and Lisa talk, and now all of a sudden there's another lifeboat that is fully functional with oxygen in it for some reason. And she's able to get onto it with 6 minutes to spare and return to the planet, no problem. And of course, she goes right back to where her parents or where her people are. They see the boat, they know exactly what it is as it starts entering orbit. And her dad Birch or Grandpa Birch is like, send a vehicle to recover her. She survived. They did the Wayne's World happy ending, and that eats at me a little bit because this wasn't a happy ending story. This was definitely a bittersweet ending story. The whole thing is bittersweet. The whole thing is failure and struggle and difficulties. And so I think it was a little bit of an unearned happy ending. I don't like that Millie suddenly was able to find a fully functioning 250, actually 300-year-old escape pod that hadn't had maintenance done to it in centuries. The whole ship is falling apart, but there's an escape vessel fully powered, ready to go, fueled, with plenty of oxygen. Come on, man. Ex Machina or not, that's a little too on the nose. But did it ruin the story? Absolutely not. I just think it would have been better if he had committed to staying with the bittersweet of this entire short story that it was. With all that being said, though, not going to change my mind. This is definitely a very good story, very good series of short stories, and it's a solid 4 out of 5. This was the best one I've read out of the book so far. There's still 12 to go. I'm sure there'll be some competition, but this was great. It had all the ingredients. It had all the stuff that you look for in a sci-fi short story. Actually, it had all the ingredients you look for in a full-blown novel, and I really hope the author takes each and every character and ties it into a really long series, because I would love to sit down and just devour all these characters and learn more about the world that he's created, the situation, see how the struggles go, how the war goes, how Birch eventually turns everything around and convinces people. I'm sure with the Sally suit it wasn't difficult, but it's just it's so it felt so much more like a series of sneak peeks into a broader story that I really, really want to read. So definite 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Can't recommend it enough. Please go down to the description below, click the link, buy the book, and read this story. It's really worth your time. And that's it. Another book review is in the history books. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comment section below. Again, I really do want to encourage you to go and check out the book, especially even if it's just for this story alone. It's worth the price. Check it out. Support some local, well, not local, but self-published authors, and give it a chance. Come back, let me know. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, maybe you're somewhere in the middle, but let me know in the comment section, and we can have a discussion about it. But that's going to do it for this one. So as always, thanks.